Recently, very important news were published about China landing on the moon, and a lot of news. The first news with us says, China unveils video of its moon base plans, which weirdly includes a NASA space shuttle. The China National Space Administration has released a video of its concept for a lunar base to be developed across the next couple of decades. CNSA unveiled the video on April 24 as part of the country's annual Space Day celebrations. The project is known as the International Lunar Research Station and was jointly announced in 2021 by China and Russia. China is now leading the moon base initiative and attempting to attract international partners for the endeavor. So far, alongside China, Russia, Venezuela, Pakistan, Azerbaijan, Belarus, South Africa, Egypt, Thailand, and Nicaragua have joined the initiative. The video shows a number of missions, including surface sample return operations, a lander and rover, and supporting orbital satellites. These correspond to the planned Chang'e 6 and 7 missions planned for launch next month and in 2027 respectively. Together with Chang'e 8, these will form a basic model of the ILRS by around 2028. Next will come communications, power generation, and other infrastructure, which will be built on and developed into an expansive, inhabited lunar outpost. The project is envisioned as a comprehensive scientific experimental base which will host interdisciplinary and multi-objective research activities focusing on lunar exploration and utilization, according to Chinese reports. It will be capable of long-term independent operation either on the lunar surface or in lunar orbit. Wu Weiren, chief designer of China's lunar exploration program, told China Central Television on Wednesday the moon serves as a starting point, and an international lunar research station will provide a platform for long-term scientific research, work, and habitation, paving the way for future human exploration into deeper space. It will serve as a technological, material, and intellectual reservoir, preparing us for future missions to Mars and other distant destinations in space. Wu says the ILRS will be constructed in 2 phases. The first will establish comprehensive scientific facilities with basic functions and essential supporting elements around the lunar South Pole by 2035. The second phase will set about building a well-equipped and stable facility of considerable scale by 2045. One curious detail of the video is the presence of a retired NASA space shuttle appearing to lift off from a launch pad in the background. The shuttle was retired in 2011. NASA is largely prohibited from cooperating with Chinese entities and has its own Artemis program, while China is also developing its own large and reusable launch vehicles for lunar exploration. The second news with us says, Astrophotographer captures the running chicken nebula in impeccable detail. The stunning view of the running chicken nebula IC 2944 took astrophotographer Rod Prazers over 42 hours to capture, his longest project yet. Prazers told Space.com in an email the running chicken nebula was quite a challenge to image with such a little scope, but Prazers' perseverance paid off, with him capturing the stellar nursery in exquisite detail. Prazers continued this active stellar nursery, not just a visual spectacle but also a site of complex cosmic phenomena, is easily identifiable by its unique avian shape, which has captured the imagination of astronomers and stargazers alike. The running chicken nebula is located in the constellation Centaurus, approximately 6,500 light-years from Earth and invisible only in the southern hemisphere. The vast stellar nursery contains many young stars, all of which emit intense radiation, causing the surrounding hydrogen gas to glow in beautiful shades of red. The running chicken nebula is comprised of several regions, each captured in great detail in this image. My favorite part of the nebula lies just below El Centauri, where a nebulous formation presents itself with a mesmerizing blend of colors and shapes. This area, rich in ionized gases and scattered starlight, offers a breathtaking view that highlights the artistic beauty inherent in the cosmos. The brightest region of the nebula is called IC 2940. It contains dark clumps of opaque clouds known as Bok globules, named after the Dutch-American astronomer Bart Bok, who drew attention to them in the 1940s. This particular set of Bok globules is known as Thackeray's globules after their discoverer David Thackeray. Bok globules are key targets for studying the early stages of star formation. While larger Bok globules in calmer conditions can collapse and form new stars, the Thackeray's globules imaged here are being bombarded with ultraviolet radiation from nearby stars, causing them to erode and fragment. It will be destroyed before they get a chance to collapse and form new stars. Also captured in this running chicken nebula image is NGC 3766, an open star cluster. Prazers said known for its tightly packed stars, NGC 3766 provides a stunning contrast to the diffuse nebulosity surrounding it, showcasing the diversity of astronomical objects in this region. And next news with us says, NASA's TESS exoplanet hunter may have spotted its first rogue planet. NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite may have discovered its first free-floating, or orphaned, planet. That's a planet roaming the cosmos without a star, all alone. The potential discovery demonstrates that TESS can use a phenomenon first suggested by Albert Einstein over 100 years ago to spot these so-called rogue planets. Despite the fact that we're most familiar with planets that orbit a parent star after discovering over 5,000 exoplanets that exist in such an arrangement, the Milky Way is estimated to be populated with a huge number of free-floating rogue planets, too. In fact, our galaxy may contain as many as a quadrillion rogue planets that have been ejected from their home systems by gravitational interactions with other planets or passing stars. That means these free-floating worlds could vastly outnumber the amount of stars across the Milky Way. Thus, the potential detection of such a cosmic orphan by TESS, which launched in 2018, is a big deal. Team co-leader Michelle Kunimoto, a postdoctoral fellow specializing in exoplanet detection at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, said, "We discovered the first signal in TESS data that is consistent with what one would expect from microlensing by a free-floating planet." Kunimoto continued this was only the first sector we searched through of the 75 that TESS has observed, with each sector corresponding to around 27 days of TESS observations. Finding something so early was surprising, but really exciting. Should this signal actually indicate a rogue exoplanet, it would likely be a planet with a mass a few times that of Earth at a distance of no less than 6,500 light-years away. The majority of exoplanets that have been detected thus far have been hinted at thanks to the effect they have on their parent star. This could be a wobble in the star's motion caused by an orbiting planet's minor gravitational tug, or a drop in light that happens as an orbiting planet crosses or transits the face of its star. Without a parent star, however, neither of these methods apply. That's what makes detecting rogue planets so difficult. Rogue planets are dark, as you might expect, and they don't orbit any stars, which means the usual techniques for detecting exoplanets don't really work. Fortunately, Einstein's 1915 theory of gravity, better known as general relativity, predicts a phenomenon that can be used to spot these free-floating exoplanets. Einstein suggests that objects with mass curve the very fabric of space and time, or space-time with gravity arising from this curvature. When light passes one of those curved spots in space-time, its path gets bent. That means light from a background source, say a star or a galaxy, can take different paths around the intervening lensing object, thus arriving to an observer's vision at different times. This phenomenon is called gravitational lensing and results in the position of the background source shifting from the perspective of the observer or appearing in multiple places in the same image. Rogue planets have very little mass, so the lensing effect is weak and thus called a microlensing, yet it can cause a brightening of a background source that is visible to astronomers, indicating the presence of a rogue planet. Microlensing is the best and typically only option for finding these dark, isolated objects, since it only relies on the mass of a planet through its gravitational field. The next news with us says, space threats NORAD upgrade may spur new private defense spending in Canada. Canada, like the U.S., is looking to private industry to beef up its space security and military satellites. The first Canada-U.S. NORAD Modernization Summit will be held north of the border in the Canadian capital, Ottawa, on Wednesday. NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, is the entity that monitors the air and space around Canada and the continental United States for any threats. While most of the summit activities are classified, Canadian government officials know that radar coverage in the nation thins out considerably in the far north, as well as out past the coasts. So the country's Defense Department is working on implementing new technologies to increase coverage, military representatives told a parliamentary committee meeting on April 29. Blaise Frawley, deputy commander, told the Canadian Standing Committee on National Defense in the live-stream meeting, "That's why we are moving forward with over-the-horizon radar to solve that problem, covering those areas that are currently not covered." The U.S. and Canada are both concerned about emerging threats from Russia and China, including reports of Russian anti-satellite nuclear weapons, along with the rise of Chinese spy balloons that entered NORAD airspace repeatedly in 2023. Following their American allies, the Canadians are creating a commercial integration cell within their Canadian Space Operations Centre. Parliamentarians heard the aim is to have companies standing by to assist in collecting information for national security needs. Brigadier General G. Michael Adamson, commander of 3 Canadian Space Division, in the same live stream said, "It's become very clear to us and our allies over the last little while that this really needs to be a large team effort in terms of not just having defense capabilities, but certainly leveraging those of industry partners. The division is the equivalent of the U.S. Space Force and aims to more deeply integrate space activities into the Canadian Armed Forces. Wednesday's NORAD summit is part of a long, continual thing that will continue into the future. We want to make sure that we not only include Canadian industry, but hear how their space capabilities could help us with our future problems in the NORAD context." Canada has committed about $28.3 billion to NORAD modernization activities for 20 years after June 2022, with aspects including detecting threats earlier and modernizing air weapon systems. This was after the U.S. and Canadian Defense Departments issued a joint statement in 2021 committing to improve situational awareness, modernize command and control systems, more research and development, and methods to deter airborne threats. There are already some satellite options that are exclusively for Canadian use, aside from sharing with Australia, New Zealand, the UK, and the US, the other 4 members of the Five Eyes Intelligence Partnership. While the Canadian Space Agency is a civilian organization, it collaborates with the Defense Department using the RadarSat satellite series. RadarSat is a generational set of satellites key for climate change monitoring, international disaster response, and military surveillance. A last news with us says, SpaceX that startup Portal Space Systems comes out of stealth mode. A spaceflight startup with some serious bona fides has just come out of stealth mode. Portal Space Systems announced its existence today, April 30, revealing that it has snagged more than $3 million in funding from the U.S. Department of Defense for the development and launch of its new Supernova satellite bus. Portal's CEO's Jeff Thornburg. He previously served as Senior Director of Propulsion Engineering at SpaceX, where he led the development of Raptor, the brawny next-gen engine that powers the company's Starship megarocket. Thornburg was also head of mechanical engineering and manufacturing for Project Kuiper, Amazon's planned satellite internet constellation. Company representatives said Supernova will be far more maneuverable than currently operational satellites thanks to its new solar thermal propulsion technology. The space industry hasn't fundamentally improved satellite bus technology in decades. Our nation is developing 6th-generation fighter aircraft technology but still uses 1st-generation satellite buses. Our novel solar thermal propulsion system and bus design, combined with our compatibility to support any customer payload, sets us apart. We provide an over 5x improvement in current spacecraft mobility. For our customers, that means the ability to have spacecraft on orbit that are able to respond in real time to events in any orbital regime. Supernova will be able to move from low Earth orbit, the realm within 2,000 kilometers of our planet's surface, to geostationary orbit, which lies 35,786 kilometers up, in just hours. And it will be capable of making the trek from LEO to the region around the Moon in a matter of days. Portal has received significant support from the U.S. Space Force, the Seattle-based startup wrote in the same statement. Portal has received significant support from the U.S. Space Force, the Seattle-based startup wrote in the same statement. That's not terribly surprising. The Space Force has repeatedly stressed the importance of boosting the nation's flexibility and responsiveness in the final frontier, all the way out to the Moon. Supernova has not flown yet. Portal is currently eyeing late 2025 for the spacecraft's debut launch. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.